You drifted away into your own little place as time went on. Taggle and yourself lounged in comfortable silence, although anticipation grew between you both. Taggle appeared as though he was trying not to fall asleep, but his slow blinking and sinking body gave him away. The night shivered, departing the blackness from Epiapia's horizon. The shell of the sky blushed at the edges. Hours had passed, from what you could tell, yet a knowing seeped inside your core. You were moving forward, and it wouldn't be long before you reached your destination. Still, the sky resembled a giant puddle of ink, with no clouds and no stars to be seen either. Stars? You asked Taggle, with a smile, where all the stars had gone to, and jokingly inquired if they were hiding on the other side of the world. With the beat of silence following your question, you understood something was deeply wrong. Taggle mimed the word stars back at you in fear, not believing what he had heard. He stared at you. No, stared past your shoulder, waiting. Then he grabbed your arms, steadying you.
For the love of the triptych, be still.
His hand covered your eyes and whispered in absolute desperation.
Don't make a sound.
You couldn't see anymore, but the last thing you heard was Taggle taking one last breath and holding it in. The world fell into complete stillness. Nothing but your breath corrupted the silence. Breathe. Oh, you couldn't. The atmosphere had split itself away from your boat. No air rushed into your lungs as you gasped in fear. Absolute coldness grappled you both. Taggle's body tensed around you, muffling your panic as best as he could. And you both waited. Until sound had returned. As soon as everything was restored, Taggle let go of you. It was a struggle to contain yourself, not understanding what happened, but just saying stars was enough to create a world-ending state. Depersonalization and derealization combined into sheer terror. Like a cellular aneurysm. What caused such a cataclysmic event? And why was the word stars tethered to it? Taggle turned pale, stumbling back into his seat, vacant and lost in the moment. The shake of his hands was evident, and yet no anger took over him like before. There was only a state of heartbrokenness, as though someone had died and the emptiness was all that was left behind. He raised his head, fraction by fraction, swallowed, and glanced tenderly towards you.
For obvious reasons, we do not say the S-word. Whenever that word is uttered, we lose something precious to us. Instead, we lovingly call those celestial bodies shining roses.
You almost didn't want to ask it, but you knew you had to. Why couldn't you say that word? Taggle just shook his head.
That word is a curse.
He pulled his hat further down his head, pinching the rim with his left hand and stroking around the rim to the front 3 times over, before flicking it like one would a cowboy hat. A self-pacifying ritual indeed. You let go of a breath you didn't realize you had been holding on to. Adrenaline still peaked inside your veins, and you wondered if you were ever going to get used to this place. Suggesting stars was a curse word was an utter understatement. But roses? Shining roses in a celestial garden. It made sense. Still, you sailed on, along the river which never strayed from straight ahead. A part of you now couldn't wait to get off this boat. A part of you now didn't know if it was any safer off of this boat. Maybe it was safer out of this land. What did Adarine have in store for you? Were there any signs or borders for this other country? You sat up and looked around, spying for some trace of a landmark. In your absence, the flat plain of the field began to rise and fall in soft little hills. These mounds of earth with small round holes glowed with a light. Some lights were dim or bright, but all were a dark blue like a moonlit ocean. Then you could hear music, laughter, and dancing coming from these hills. This was no ordinary field. Taggle piped up, noticing your interest in these little glowing mounds.
Those are Morsi hills. The Morsi folk live there. Sounds like they're celebrating something tonight.
The Morsi folk? They must be very small indeed, no bigger than a mouse. You straightened your back to see as far as you could, but not one of these things were to be found in the grass. Your boat abruptly halted, causing you both to almost lose your balance. When you sat up, you saw Taggle had slipped too. You cried out what happened, and if you had done something wrong. You were about to climb out of the boat when you saw it had stopped at a ledge. A tiny dock, no bigger than a plank of wood.
Someone is coming aboard,
Taggle remarked. There. Movement along the cobbled path. Two shadows huddled together, skittering and twitching. They looked like mice. Well, not quite. They closer resembled elephant shrews. Fluffy black bodies blooming up into blood orange faces, with white speckles in a crescent shape above their dark eyes. Both were wearing dark velvet coats, embellished with black pearls and tall Medici collars. The taller Morsi held an elegant cane to their side, and their arm around the smaller, who was hoisting a weighted pouch bag with both paws on the handle. Scurrying down the earthen path, their feet gave little taps on the wooden dock before they hopped aboard the boat. Had they been visiting for the celebrations? The large suitcase suggested so. You looked at Taggle, but Taggle kept his head low, hands tucked between his knees, utterly still and silent. With its cane, the Morsi rapped the wood 3 times. The bell atop the bow gave a ring, and the boat set sail again. You and Taggle faced each other now, legs slotting in a pattern. Even though you had only known this man for a few hours, it was oddly comforting to be close to him. You studied his hands in your communal silence. His palms a pearl white, nails short, uniform in length, and the veins running down his knuckles shimmered under his grey skin in little rivers of turquoise. The Morsi couple tittered to each other in soft whispers, peppered by squeaks. It was a delicate language, one which you were saddened not to understand. As they squeaked, you discovered some of the nuances in their speech. When, assumedly, talking about the party, they mimicked their dancing, holding the opposite paws to each other, raising them above their heads, and then to their chests. They talked with their ears too, twitching and moving in different directions, sometimes independently of one another. When they agreed on something, the nose of their long snouts touched, went quiet, before carrying on conversing. It was adorable. They obviously had a lovely evening. You couldn't help but smile to yourself, escorting a high fantasy version of the Sylvanian families back home. So much so, the Morsi folk paid you no mind. You asked if they had a good evening, but they didn't respond. The taller one glanced at you from over its shoulder, sniffed in your direction, then turned back round. They couldn't understand you. Talking to one another again, their conversation grew more animated. Their speech quickened and their squeak sharpened, growing louder to the point where they hurt your ears. Perhaps you upset them somehow. Suddenly, they started speaking English. English! You, mystified, looked to Taggle again to find him covertly gripping a golden globe, a tragus piercing in his ear. Another magical item. This one he was able to share its gift. That's when you heard them. Don't want to share a boat with them. The nerve to be spoken to. No, it wasn't that they didn't understand you. They were ignoring you. Actively ignoring you. Blinking in confusion, you slowly retreated into yourself, contemplating if you had done anything to offend them. Perhaps it was best to wait until they left to ask Taggle what not to do next time before you met anyone else. Up the river bank, dark, tall crops rustled in front of the mounds of earth. More Morsi homes, where no light shone through their round holes. Things were quiet in this neighbourhood. The Morsi rapped their cane on the wood again as another dock approached. The boat sailed gently into the petite port, and with that the two Morsi folk gathered themselves and climbed out of the boat, without even looking back. Once the two had slipped into the thick, tall crops, Taggle raised his head for the first time since you received your visitors. His shoulders dropped, letting out a huge sigh as he readjusted his hat further up his head, no longer concealing his face. With the back of his finger, using his nail, he tapped 3 times in the same spot the Morsi had, and with a ring of the bell, the boat set sail again. When Taggle remained quiet, you huffed, exclaiming, "What was that all about? Did you do something wrong?" You remarked if you had accidentally done something offensive for Taggle to explain, so you would never do it again.
You did nothing wrong.
Taggle shook his head. Then you asked if he knew them.
No, never seen them before in my life. I've seen Morsi folk before, but not... well, you know what I mean.
Taggle's head hung low again, almost out of shame or guilt. You weren't sure. He averted his gaze when he explained the reason for including you in his earlier spell.
I was hesitant if I should let you hear what they were saying, but I knew it would only hinder you in the long run if I didn't. I cannot shield you from the bad instances that will happen, and it's not my responsibility to. You are old enough to know.
Taggle whispered your name, gently revealing the truth.
Sometimes people will hate you. They will hate you as soon as they see you.
You demanded to know why. Why would they decide to hate before understanding anything about you?
Hate is a strong feeling. They could have just as easily loved you, but they didn't. You and me, we are made of different things, and others believe we are too different for them. History is marked as life before our existence and life after it. There is no avoiding such history. It is a stain of what is to come. You are incongruous along with us. It frightens others, and chained to that fear is hatred. But don't be afraid. Those who are different will love you because you are so.
It was true then. Sometimes people don't like you, and there's nothing you can do about it. The pit settling inside your stomach was apparent. This had all the appearance of an astonishing dream, but it was more terrible and complex than before. People hated one another for no reason. The evils of human nature festered here too, and you didn't like it one bit. Dawn had arrived. The flush of the horizon promised it. Another dock approached, larger this time. Time to depart and see what this world had planned for you. Hey, hi, hello. Thank you very much for watching. I think I'm going to put Saving Stars, well, I'm going to upload Saving Stars on the 3rd of every month, and then on the 21st I'll put on a little pocket fable or something else. But yeah, you'll always get 2 videos out of me every month from now on, hopefully. But yeah, I had fun writing this chapter, but when I was making the Morsi folk, I was editing the picture of them. They just look so stupid. Oh, I just love their little stupid faces. But yeah, the next chapter is gonna be a hard one to write. I want to get it perfect, but yeah, we will see. We'll see. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. Please subscribe, and yeah, take care. Bye bye.